Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Conrad Gorlinski. We start today's program with the new national identity cards, which will be issued to people whose current ID cards expire on August 2nd, 2021, or to those who turn 18 this year. It will take 10 years to replace all the IDs with the new ones. The new national identity cards will include fingerprints and handwritten signatures of the owner.
The Council of Ministers adopted a draft act adjusting Polish legal regulations to EU regulations on improving the security of ID cards in order to reduce the risk of document forgery. All EU member states were obliged to include in their documents fingerprints and handwritten signatures. Only until August 2nd will it be possible to submit an application to receive a new identity card electronically. After that date, anyone who wishes to obtain a new ID will have to visit the office in person. New IDs will be issued to people who turn 18 after August 2nd this year, or to those whose ID cards expire after that date. Over 1.5 million Poles are to replace their old identity cards with new ones this year, including 358,000 who turn 18.
And on Sunday, the Ministry of Health reported another decrease in the number of new coronavirus infections in Poland. The ministry announced over 12,000 new confirmed cases of COVID-19 infection. According to the latest data from the Ministry of Health, over 31,000 people are currently in hospitals, which is 803 less than yesterday.
The number of new infections is 12,153, new deaths 207, total infections 2,688,025, total deaths 62,032. The Ministry of Health announced 12,153 new COVID-19 infections and 207 new deaths caused by coronavirus and coexisting diseases. The largest number of new infections was announced in the Śląskie province, which is 1,896. The smallest number of infections was reported in the Podlaskie province at 214. 65,410 tests for the presence of the coronavirus were conducted in Poland in the last 24 hours. Over 8,845,735 vaccinations have been performed in the country so far.
Prime Minister Scott Morrison announced on Sunday that Australia is in no hurry to reopen its international borders and risk the country's nearly coronavirus-free life. Australia closed its borders to all non-citizens and non-residents in March 2020 and has been permitting only limited international arrivals in recent months, mainly its citizens returning from abroad. The border closure, together with snap lockdowns, swift tracking, and high community compliance with health measures, have made Australia one of the world's most successful countries in curbing the pandemic, limiting coronavirus cases to under 29,500 infections and only 910 deaths.
For months now, except for some short snap lockdowns, Australians have been able to dine out, gather nearly freely, and stop wearing face masks in most places.
Australia is in no hurry to open those borders, can I assure you. I mean, there are 3 million people now who have died from COVID. The COVID pandemic is raging around the world. And I can assure Australians that I will not be putting at risk the way we are living in this country, which is so different to the rest of the world today. The issues of borders and how they're managed will be done very, very carefully and must be done in partnership with the states and territories in terms of how the quarantine program works. Public health orders control what is done with quarantine of returning Australians and residents. And so we will do that in partnership with them. We can take small steps, I think. Not ready to take those steps now for Australians to be able to travel and return without hotel quarantine. We're not in that position yet. We're simply doing the planning work, understanding what the health risks are, understanding how that can be successfully done. And in a few months from now, well, we'll see where we're at. But we're going to proceed very, very cautiously on those borders. If we can get ourselves in a position, perhaps in the second half of the year, where Australians, for essential purposes, can travel and return to the country without going into hotel quarantine if they have been vaccinated. It's a good incentive to get vaccinated too, I'd stress. The other issue is then that would potentially open the door later for returning Australian residents to have a successful home isolation quarantine. But we have to make sure that that will work. But the idea on one day that everything just opens, that's not how this is going to happen. It'll be happen cautiously and carefully working very hard on the medical and health protections in place, because I'm not going to put at risk the way that Australians are living today. We can see all around the rest of the world. I say about going overseas for sensual reasons. That can be compassionate reasons. There are many of these things in place now. Why anyone else would want to go anywhere else at the moment when there's so many great things here to do in Australia? Australians are embracing their own country now like they haven't in a long time, and I tell you what, they're not disappointed.
Earlier this week, Australia abandoned a goal to vaccinate nearly all of its 26 million population by the end of 2021, following advice that people under the age of 50 take Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccines rather than AstraZeneca's shot.
As always, thank you for tuning in this evening and have a wonderful week ahead.